Okay, as promised, today we're going to have a couple of lectures. The first one is going to be, and you can watch them anywhere you wish, but for me, the first one is the MLA, the Modern Language Association, the 8th edition, that informs us just exactly how an English essay is composed within an introductory composition class, and the style in which we will format everything from the title of the paper all the way through to the works cited and in-text citation. So let's get into it. As you can see here, modern MLA stands for Modern Language Association. Style formatting is often used in various humanities disciplines. An English class will always be part of a humanities department. So it's always used for any English paper you're write for the rest of your life. To submit it within the framework of an English class, whether that's a creative writing class, whether that's introductory composition or poetry or any sort of literature class, you're going to definitely use MLA. You will use no other style formatting. And I know a lot of you probably used to APA, but in this class we got to stick to MLA formatting. Let's go ahead and look at what it actually encompasses. So some important parts that are encompassed within Modern Language Association or MLA formatting is it dictates what the document is how the document is actually formatted, and we're going to look at examples of this. It allows us to see what the in-text citation actually looks like, and we're going to see an example of that. And then it allows us to it shows us how the in-text citation corresponds or marries up to the works cited page, which is the last page of your essay. And you can see here they have the works cited in the bulletized form. They have it hyphenated with that dash between the works and the cited. And we're not going to do that. When we do our works cited page, we're going to center the words works and cited at the top of the works cited page, no hyphen in between them. Make sure the works is plural, meaning it has an S, okay? So a quick overview of some key elements that we're going to look at today with regard to MLA formatting. This presentation will cover general guidelines. We're going to look at that in a moment. The first page formatting, what is actually the first page looks like. If you recall through APA, if you've taken any science-based class that uses APA, typically you have a title page. Well, we don't include a title page in MLA. It's kind of a waste of paper. So we in MLA excludes that idea of having a title page. Section headings. Again, we're not going to, well, we're getting to that in a moment. In-text citations, which we sort of covered already. How do you format quotations, paraphrases, block quotes, things of that nature, summaries. Documenting sources in MLA style. So the core elements and a list of works cited. Let's go ahead and take a look at a couple of those examples. One of the hard and fast rules that they include within this PowerPoint, made available through, if you have any questions concerning this PowerPoint, or if you want to sort of drill down on some of the concepts more, either email me, or you could just Google Purdue OWL MLA, and it'll bring you to their page, and it shows you all the rules that we're going to go over today. If you need to sort of brush up on those after this, or you can email me to clarify any rule that you was sort of unclear to you, any clarification on. But at the end of the day, you follow my instructions, and some of these information within this PowerPoint, I'm not going to really stress. I'm not going to underscore because I don't agree with them. So I'll tell you when that takes place within this PowerPoint. But if you have any questions, any concerns, you could always email me concerning MLA style formatting. Okay, some of the general guidelines with regard to MLA style should be. Uh, the paper should be 8.5 inch times 11 inch paper. That's normal. That's a regular paper that fits into a printer. In our case, everything's digital, so we really don't have to worry about the size because the Word document is going to automatically format and default it to these numbers. It won't default to double space. You have to highlight everything and then double space it if you didn't do so from the outset of creating the essay. Um, Use 12 point Times New Roman font or similar. I'd say what we're going to do, the hard and fast rule is this: use 12 point Times New Roman font, and I'll comment on that. And you can comment on that as well with regard to people's rough draft that are uploaded to Blackboard. When you go in there and comment on on the various essays, you're going to read them and you're like, wow, this doesn't seem like it's double spaced. So you can give that comment, or this doesn't seem like it's 12 point font. It looks like they're using 14 point font. So just make sure that we use 12 point Times New Roman font. Leave only one space after punctuation. I'm not going to take a ruler to the screen and measure that. I don't care about that really. Just have your punctuation is what I'm really asking. Set all margins to 1 inch on all sides. We're going to have some funky looking essays. It's inevitable every semester where the margins are really either too big or too small, typically too big. But we don't want to do that. We want to make sure they're 1 inch. And really, the Word document, Microsoft Word, it defaults to 1 inch. So you shouldn't have to change any of that. And then, of course, indent the first line of paragraphs 1/2 inch. So every paragraph, every new paragraph within your essay, within this class, according to MLA, dictates that every new paragraph should have an indentation, right? You hit tab once, right? And then you start your new paragraph. Or sorry, you hit tab and then yeah, you start your new paragraph. It is fairly intuitive Word document in that your tab the first paragraph, right? Your tab, write your first paragraph, introductory paragraph, and then your next paragraph it'll pick up on the pattern that you want it to be indented. So you shouldn't have to do it after that, hopefully. Okay, some other things that you have to include with regard to general guidelines in terms of modern language association style or MLA style. You have a header, which page number located in the upper right hand corner. We'll look at an example of this in a moment. Use italics for titles of containers, so e.g. books. So I don't want you to get your head wrapped around the idea of a container work. Just think about if it's a book or the title of a website that you pull information off of, or the title of a journal, or the title of an article. The article would come from a larger journal, right? That would be italicized. And then the actual chapter from the book or the article from that website, that would be quotation mark. The smaller part is quotation. The larger part, what they're calling a container, is italicized. And we're going to look at examples of that. Place endnotes on a separate page before the list of works cited. We're not going to do endnotes, so don't worry about that. Okay, sort of a review. The first page of your essay we will not have a title page, as I mentioned before. That's strictly APA, not MLA. Double space everything. That includes the works cited page. List your name, your instructor's name, the course, and date in the upper left-hand corner. We're going to look at an example of that, and that needs to be double space as well. Center the paper title. So as soon as you list your name, my name, the course, the date in the upper left-hand corner, you hit enter once or return once, right? And then you center the title of the page of the paper. And the title is not going to be underlined or italics or quotation marked or boldface, nothing. It is absolutely just left alone. Of course, you capitalize every major word in a title, correct? And then create a header in the upper right-hand corner at 1/2 inch from the top and 1 inch from the right of the page. That lists your last name and page number. And we're going to look at an example. Don't get caught wrapped around the axle of it needs to be 1/2 inch from the top and 1 inch from the right. As long as it's not really crazy spaced, I won't care about the spacing, right? But you will have your last name in the top right-hand corner, a space, and then the page number. And that page number has to advance. I get papers all the time that, yeah, they put their last name, say their last name is Jones, on the top right-hand corner of every page, and then the page number, page 1 on the first page, and then page 2 will have page 1 again. All right, it doesn't advance. It must advance, okay? All right, so here's an example or a sample of the first page of an essay. As you can see, the author of this essay, the student, is Charlotte Lucas. We get that in the left-hand side, top left-hand side, right? The instructor for the class is Dr. J. Austin. The class name or title is English 106, and you can abbreviate our class, ENGL 252, or you can spell out English 252, up to you. And then the date, this is a very specific date format that's in particular done by people who are practicing MLA style. So we have to do this date style in this way, this formatting. So the day, the actual day, so in this case it's 12, the full month spelled out, October, right? And then a space, and then the full year, okay? That's how it's formatted. And then right after you mention the date, you hit enter once, and you can see we get the title, Building a Dream, Reason to Expand, Ross-Ade Stadium. All right, so that's the title of their essay. It's not bold, it's not underlined, it's not italicized, it's not quotation marked, it's left completely alone. And then on the top right-hand side, the author of this essay, the student author, right? We get their last name only. We get Charlotte's last name, Lucas, space, and then page 1. And then hopefully the next page, it advances to page 2 as well. If you have any questions on how to do any of these components, email me and I'll run you through a tutorial on how. Or as I said before, you can Google Purdue, OWL, MLA style, hit enter on the first entry that comes up in Google, and then they'll run you through everything I'm going through and give you other examples. As you can see here, we have the in-text citation formatting guidelines for MLA. So an in-text citation is a brief reference in your text that indicates the source you consulted. We're going to look at an example of that in a moment, many examples actually. It should direct readers to the entry in your works cited list for that source. Again, they dashed or hyphened works cited. We're not going to do that. It should be unobtrusive, provide the citation information without interrupting your own text. MLA seeks to streamline whatever APA makes clunky on the page. I'm just letting you know that. MLA wants to make everything unobtrusive on the page, right? So typically in an in-text citation, we get the author's last name, space, there is no punctuation. We're going to get to one example. We may include punctuation within the in-text citation, but for the most part, the general rule is there is no punctuation within the in-text citation of the MLA paper, right? No commas. It used to be years ago. It used to be there was commas between the author's last name and then the page number within the in-text citation. But for us, for the 8th edition, which is what we're using for MLA, it's unobtrusive. There's no punctuation that we include within the in-text citation. It's just the author's last name, space, and then the page number. In general, the in-text citation will be the author's last name, I just covered this, or abbreviated title with a page number enclosed in parentheses. Okay, so in this day and age, when we're writing English papers, English essays, right, and we go out there to the large sort of internet universe and try to find information to corroborate our thesis statement, we don't always have the opportunity to see an author's last name. Maybe we find a website that has a really good quote that we want to include in our essay, but we can't find the author, right? Say it's a Canadian government website, and on the Canadian government website, maybe they have some really good information. For whatever reason, whatever topic you're covering within your paper, and you want to use the quote. You think it's a really good quote that reinforces your own thesis statement, and you think it's a really good authority on the subject matter. But you can't find the author. But you still want to use the quote, correct? You still want to pull that quote from that website. Well, then you have to use the title of the website, or the title of that article in the on the website. And you would quotation mark that title. That would be what your in-text citation would be. And gone are the days too where we have page numbers online, right? So if you're on that government website, all of a sudden you can't have an in-text citation with the author's last name because you can't find it, and you can't find a page number, so you can't include a page number either. So we'll look at an example of that later on. But you still have to include something within the in-text citation. In this case, you would use either the title of the article, or if it's a really long title, you would abbreviate it to say 3 words. Let's look at a few examples. Okay, here we have an example where this author, this student, let's say, is writing a paper, and they're quoting Wordsworth a few times. In this, see how they included 3 in-text citations within this small paragraph, this small passage, really. That's over-citing, right? They're including too much citation. I'm going to just go ahead and say I'm okay with this. I don't like it. It's kind of clunky when you oversight. They could have easily, at the very end of this paragraph, it just included 263, page 263, right? Instead, they dispersed it after every quote or paraphrase. I'm okay if you do this, if you over in-text citation, all right? If you under in-text citation, it's bad. You're going to get points deducted. But if you over in-text citation, I will not take any points off. So let's go ahead and look at this example of an in-text citation. They embedded within the paragraph, right? Wordsworth stated that romantic poetry was marked by a, quote, spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings, unquote. And then the in-text citation is page 263. The reason they mention only 263 and not Wordsworth 263 is that they mention Wordsworth within the actual setup for the quote, right? The very beginning of this paragraph says Wordsworth stated that romantic poetry was marked by, quote, spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings, unquote, 263. Had they put Wordsworth within the in-text citation and 263, I would have been okay with that as well. If you were going to do that, I'm okay with that. That's over in-text citation. And as I said before, I will not take points off for that. It's only when you under in-text citation that I will. So the next sentence of this paragraph, romantic poetry is characterized by the, quote, spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings, unquote. They did not mention Wordsworth within the setup of this sentence. Within the sentence or the setup for the quote. So they said they felt compelled to mention it within the in-text citation, which is fine. Wordsworth, space, 263, then close the in-text citation with the parentheses. So the final one, Wordsworth extensively explored the role of emotion in the creative process. So they're paraphrasing here, right? It's not a direct quote. That's fine. You may, when you get to your second essay, the expository essay, you may just paraphrase throughout. I enjoy if you use direct quotes. I think it's a stronger way to reach out to an outside authority is to just directly quote them. But you may paraphrase as well. You may intersperse paraphrase and direct quote within your essay. But for our personal essay, our first essay that we're going to get a lecture on today as well, you might not have any direct quotes. In this case, it would be dialogue for the personal essay. So they said Wordsworth. We're looking at the last sentence of this paragraph. They said Wordsworth within the setup of the paraphrase. Within this sentence, so they just felt compelled to use 263, which is perfectly permissible. Or they could have used Wordsworth space 263. That would be over in-text citation, which I said again is fine. Okay, so we sort of already covered this. So I'm just going to read it off the screen here. If the essay provides a signal word or phrase, usually the author's last name, the in-text citation does not need to also include that information. So an example would be at the very bottom here under examples. Humans have been described by Kenneth Burke as, quote, symbol using animals. So the individual here, the student, in their setup for the quote, they use Kenneth Burke already, who said this quote, right? Symbol using animals within a text of some sort, probably a book. So they did not put Burke in the in-text citation. They only included 3, right? Page 3, which is fine. Remember too, we don't put PG or paid, P-A-G-E, in our in-text citation. I get those essays as well. So please don't include the word page or the abbreviation for page, PG, in your in-text citation. It's only the number, author's last name and number. If we have an author, include the author's last name. If you don't have an author, use the title of the article or book. And make sure you put quotation marks around it to let me know that it's a title of a book or article. Humans have been described as symbol using animals, unquote. They did not use Burke, who's being quoted here as saying, quote, symbol using animals. So because they didn't use Burke as in the setup for the quote, they included it in the in-text citation. And you can see at the very top, the print source, this is what it would look like on the Works-cited page. Notice it says last name of the author first, comma, then the first name of the author, then period. Then we see there's a title that's italicized. That lets me know it's a book. Language as symbolic action, essays on life, literature, and methods. University of California Press, so the publisher, and then the year that it was published, 1966. And notice it has a hanging indent. So in order to get a hanging indent, and I'm sure individuals are going to have questions about this and problems with it when we get to the expository essay, but we're not going to have any type of works cited on the personal essay. But once you get to the expository, the argumentative essay, and your final research essay, which is really argumentative in nature as well, you are going to have entries on a works cited page, and they are each going to have, they will each have a hanging indent. And to get a hanging indent, you would highlight all your entries on your works cited page, right click, hit paragraph, and then there's a place in there to hit hanging indent, or sorry, it says hanging indent, you hit special, and then you'll be able to put the hanging indent and hit enter, and it'll put it in for you. Let me know if you have any questions on how to insert a hanging indent later on when we get to expository and argumentative essays. Okay, this might be the case for us, where we find a website or some book or article or journal, some piece of text or literature, and we say, wow, I really want to pull a quote from this, or I want to paraphrase an entire paragraph, right, or a half a paragraph. Man, I can't find the author. Where's the author, right? I don't think they're allowed me to use this. And the answer would be yes, you can use it. If it really underscores and reaches back to your thesis statement and helps prop that thesis statement up through outside authority, then yes, I would say use it. If it comes from a bona fide and vetted website, right? Not some blog and some middle-aged man's running out of his mom's basement, but some bona fide website, right? And not Wikipedia. We're never going to say, according to Wikipedia, global warming is, quote, we're not going to do that, right? Wikipedia is a great place to start. Go to the very bottom of Wikipedia. Every quote within a Wikipedia article has a number next to it, a reference number inside brackets. Hit that. That'll take you to the very bottom of the Wikipedia article, the reference section. And then click on that number. It'll take you to a website, a link to a website. That's the original quote. That's where you pull the quote from, right? So start with Wikipedia. Sure, who doesn't? Okay, so let's look at this example. But how to cite a work with no known author. That's going to happen to us. So they're paraphrasing, or the author's talking, the student author's talking to set up the quote, right? We see so many global warming hotspots in North America, likely because this region has, quote, more readily accessible climatic data and more comprehensive programs to monitor and study environmental change, unquote, impact of global warming. So this article title that they read online probably is titled Impact of Global Warming, or it's longer than this and they abbreviated it to 4 words. 3 really, if you want to count. I wouldn't count of as a major word. And that's why it's not capitalized. I capitalize every major word in titles, right? So they included the title or the abbreviated title, as we're going to see in a second. It was longer than this. They put quotation marks around it after they put it in parentheses to show me, right, the instructor, that it's a title of an article, that they couldn't find the author, right? Whenever I see a quotation mark title inside the parentheses, inside your in-text citation, I know automatically you couldn't find an author, and that's okay. That signals to me you couldn't find an author. And then they included the page number, which you might not have a page number because there isn't one on the website, and that's fine as well. And here is a corresponding entry on the Works Cited page. Look, this time they wrote Works Cited correctly. Capital W for Works, has an S at the end, it's plural, and capital C for Cited. No hyphen, no dash between the two. So here we go. This is the entry on the Works Cited page. Quote, the impact of global warming in North America. That's the long title. If you remember, they shortened it to the impact of global warming because it's so long, right? You want to include this giant long title in the middle of your paragraph or at the end of your paragraph within your essay, within the body of your essay, right? So they shortened it, which is fine. It's great. And because it's in quotation marks, I know they couldn't find an author. Global warming, early size, 1999, access, 23 March 2009. Okay, so that's the basic entry and included a hanging indent. It looks good to me. Whatever is written at the beginning of your entry on your Works Cited page has to correspond directly to your in-text citation, and theirs does, right? It says the impact of global warming on their in-text citation, which is fine. They abbreviated it, right? So that has to be the first thing I see with quotation marks when I come to your Works Cited page, right? I have to see the impact of global warming. All right. If the entry in the Works Cited list begins with the names of two authors, include both last names in the in-text citation connected by the word and, lowercase, A-N-D, lowercase, right? Not the symbol and, the ampersand, not that, but just the word lowercase and. So in the first example, Smith et al. Argues that tougher gun control is not needed in the United States. The reason you use et al. Is because the source has 3 or more authors. So if you find a source, you think it's a great quote, you really want to use it in your paper, it really underscores your thesis statement. When we get to the expository or the argumentative and research papers within this class, obviously you're not going to have this within your personal essay. But if you find it a very good quote, but it has 3 or more authors, yes, you can use it. It just has to either have the et al. In the in-text citation here, as you can see in the second entry, or it has to, you mention et al. In the setup for the quote or paraphrase, and then you just put the page number in that case. So if it's 3 or more authors, you use the first author's last name, as we see in the second entry, Smith et al. Space page 76. You don't use the second author or the third author. You don't mention any of the other authors within the in-text citation. You will, however, when we see in a second on your Works Cited page, it will mention all the authors. You don't put et al. Ever on the Works Cited page. Notice here too, the et al. Is lowercase. It is the only instance you will have punctuation within your in-text citation. We see the period after all, right, for et al. And we get the last entry when you have 2 authors, just 2 authors, right? So you mentioned both authors. A 2016 study suggests that stricter gun control in the United States will significantly prevent accidental shootings. Here's the in-text citation, Strong and Ellis, page 23, close the parentheses, period. Always put your punctuation after the in-text citation. Always put your period after the in-text citation. So I know that in-text citation goes with everything previous of that. All right, we're seeing this more and more, and maybe where you're going to go to maybe an online forum where it's audio or video and you want to quote that. So say you listen like this lecture to a PowerPoint presentation, and I've seen students even quote me from my PowerPoint presentations, and that's fine. If you do so, you use the title of the PowerPoint presentation and the timestamp, as you can see here at the end of the first entry. Buffy's promise that, quote, there's not going to be any incidents like at my old school, unquote, is obviously not one in which she could follow through with. And that came from the title of the article, the online, whatever it was, probably YouTube video, was Hush. And we know it's a title. We know that we don't know the author. And we definitely know it's the title of the article because it's in quotation marks, Hush. And then they just put the timestamp. And if you wanted to quote something from YouTube, a video from YouTube, or audio from something else, like an audiobook, all you have to do is give me the timestamp with regard to the minutes that it's wherever it's at. And if it's at the 1.5 minute mark, it would be 1:30 for 30 seconds, minute and 30 second mark, right? I'm not concerned with having all these zeros they have at the beginning of this. That breaks it down even further. And this is what it would look like on the in-text citation, the bottom, or sorry, on the Works Cited page, at the very bottom. Okay, we already covered this, but this presentation feels compelled to cover it again. Sources without page numbers. So disability activism should work toward, quote, creating a habitable space for all beings, unquote. We have the author here, Garland Thomas. Or this person's, in this case it is a she, her hyphenated last name, and include that if it's hyphenated, right, for the last name. This was most likely online. They did not have a page number, or it could have been part of some text that was actually printed that didn't have a page number, like say it was a brochure of some sort, or some text that they found that simply didn't have a page number. And you can't include a page number. You're not going to make a page number up if you don't have one. And here, see how it corresponds directly to the works-cited entry on the works-cited page. So because we get in the in-text citation Garland hyphen Thompson, we have to get the very first thing in your in-text citation, or your works-cited reference entry should say Garland Thompson first, and it does. As you can see here, just including any sort of, how do you integrate any sort of quote within your, what they're calling prose. Just think of that as your essay. Anything that's not poetry is prose. So there's many different ways to incorporate it. So the first example, according to some, dreams express, quote, profound aspects of personality, unquote, though others disagree. So they're putting the author of that quote, the person who said that quote, they're putting an in-text citation of that almost in the middle of their quote. And I would say you don't necessarily have to do that. I would say put it at the very end. So I would say the next two are correct, and I would sort of guide you towards those instead of using it in the middle. So the second one, according to Folk's study, dreams may express, quote, profound aspects of personality, unquote. This individual mentioned, this student mentioned Folk's, the author of this quote at the beginning within the actual setup for the quote. So you don't need to mention it, just like Wordsworth before. So you do not need to mention it within your in-text citation. You can, which is what happens in the last entry here on this page. It is possible that dreams may express, quote, profound aspects of personality, unquote. They mention Folks, and then they mention the page number, which is fine. I really enjoy the attribution of the first two entries on this page. According to, I would steer us towards that, guide us towards setting it up with according to, and even qualified folks. That's what I would say would make a much better paper if you qualified folks. So according to Folks, who is a leading expert in the field of such and such, dreams in this case, quote, they are profound aspects of personality, unquote, right? That lets me know who this individual is and how they are an authority in this field, in this case, dreams. I would mention the author's first name as well when I first mentioned this author, right? I would say according to Brian Folks, and then later on, if I mention Folks again, it would just be his last name, his or her last name. Okay, as you can see here, whenever you have more than 4 lines that you want to quote within your essay, and I would say do this sparingly, do this with great economy. I wouldn't want you to have every other paragraph that you have one of these, what's called a block quote. Then the block quotes are writing your essay for you, and that wouldn't be good, right? You want to maybe, if you want to include one, sure, that's fine. We're writing fairly short essays, 3 to 5 page essays, right? Double spaced for our final essay, right? For each final essay within this class. So if you include 2 or 3 block quotes, well, all of a sudden 1.5 pages are taken up by block quotes, and now you just have to write another 1.5 page, which we don't want to do. We want to avoid that. But if you feel compelled to include one because it has everything to do with what your essay is attempting to communicate, then sure, that's fine. It just can't be fluff that you're throwing in there to take up space. So in this example, you set up, there's a couple rules with block quotes. You set up a block quote with a colon. We can see at the end of this first sentence there's a colon, right? Nellie Dean treats Heathcliff poorly and dehumanizes him throughout her narration. Then we get the colon, and here's a giant quote. It's more than 4 lines. That's when you know we were going to use a block quote, right? Then you have to tab over, as you can see. It's not just a normal tab. Looks like you have to tab over twice, right? That tells me it's a block quote because a block quote does not include quotation marks. As you can see here, there is not a quotation mark anywhere within this entry. And then let's go ahead and read the entry. They entirely refused to have a bed in bed with them, or even their room. And I had no more sense, so I put it in the landing of the stairs, hoping it would be gone on the morrow. By chance, or else attracted by hearing his voice, it crept to Mr. Earshaw's door, and there he found it on quitting his chamber. Inquiries were made as to how it got there. I was obliged to confess, and in recompense for my cowardice and inhumanity was sent out of the house. Okay, then we get the period that ends the quote, right? This block quote. Then you get the in-text citation. This is completely opposite of a regular quote with in-text citation, right? We always have the period after the in-text citation in a regular short format for prose quote. In the long form, when we use the block quote, as you see here, you have the in-text citation, Bronte, page 78, after the punctuation. Let me know if you have any questions. If you really feel like you want to integrate a block quote, email me if you have any questions with regard to its formatting, and I'll help you out. All right, here's some other things you might integrate within your quotations, within your essay. So adding or omitting words. This could happen a lot. So the first example was adding words. And the reason they're adding words, inside a quote, you have a direct quote, you think it's an awesome direct quote, it has everything to do with reinforcing your thesis statement, and you really want to use it. It's a really, the quote is great. It's sharp, it's evocative of your subject matter, of your topic of your essay, but you need to clarify some information within the quote because it doesn't make sense on the page. And that's all. This is the only reason you would ever add words inside of quotation marks is to clarify information to the reader, me. So Jan Harold Brunvand in an essay on urban legends states, quote, some individuals who retell urban legends make a point of learning every rumor or tale, end quote, page 78, because they mentioned the author Brunvand in the actual setup for the quote. So this student author said, I don't think it's clear, the quote, some individuals make a point of learning every rumor or tale. So I'm going to add in brackets some clarifying information, which is what they did, who retell urban legends. It should only be to clarify the quote when you add information into the quote through brackets. Okay, then you might, on the second example, want to omit words. So say you read a paragraph, and the first sentence contains 5 sentences. The first sentence of the paragraph has everything to do with what you want to include within your quote. You think it's sharp commentary on your thesis statement. And the last sentence of that 5-sentence paragraph has everything to do with a quote that you want to include within your essay. Everything, the 3 sentences in between those 2 sentences have nothing to do with what you want to include. You have a couple options. One is use the ellipses, the 3 dots, right, to connect those 2 quotes. So in this example, in an essay on urban legends, Jan Harold Brunvand notes that, quote, some individuals make a point of learning every recent rumor or tale. Then ellipses, and in short time, a lively exchange of details occurs, end quote. So that ellipses tells me that they're jumping space within whatever they read that Brunvand wrote, right? They're jumping time and space. And that's fine. You can do that. Or you could just use the first quote, end it, put a period, and put your quotation mark, then start another quote. Brunvand goes on to say, in a short time, a lively exchange of details occurs, unquote. A couple different ways. Email me if you have any questions about that. Okay, this is just an example of what the actual works-cited page entry will look like. It begins with the entry with the author's last name, followed by a comma and the rest of the name of this individual's name as presented in the work, and this element with a period, as you can see here. The first example, Barron is the person's last name. You wanted to use Barron's quote, so you did. You integrated within your essay, but you would put a comma after Barron within the works cited page entry. Then the person's first name, Naomi in this case, and if it's part of their name, that they use all the time, their initial. So you could include that if you want, especially if in their professional career they use their middle initial for whatever reason. I guess to distinguish them among other people that are named Naomi Barron. Then we get here, you can see the italicized title of the article, or whatever it is, redefining reading, the impact of digital communication media. And then in the second entry, you get Jacobs, comma, so the person's last name, then the first name, Allen. The pleasures of reading in an age of distraction. So I know this is a book. The reason I know it's a book because it's italicized. The one above it by Naomi Barron, I know that's an article of some sort from maybe a larger thing that's a book, but because it's quotation marked. So make sure that you know the difference between you italicize titles of books, titles of large things, and then you quotation mark smaller things. So a chapter within that italicized book would be quotation marked. Let's look at an example. Okay, so the first 2 entries on here are books with Holmichael and Lynette. It's hard to see, but the book titles, So Many Books, that is italicized. That's how I know it's a book. And then in the example for Lynette, these are what it'll look like on your works cited, right? The modernism, feminism, and Jewishness, that's italicized. It's hard to see, but it is. That's what it would look like on your on your works cited entry, on your works cited page. And make sure your works cited page 2, You're not going to have a works cited page for your personal essay for this first essay. But when we get to the rest of the essays throughout this semester, this fast whirlwind of semester, make sure your your entries on your works cited page are all alphabetized, right? So on the two examples at the bottom, Beyonce, Pretty Hurts. Pretty Hurts is that comes from it's a title of something. I'm guessing a song by her, by Beyonce. And she only goes by Beyonce. Notice if someone just goes by one name, like Oprah, you might not put Oprah Winfrey. We know her by Oprah, right? So we'll just be Oprah. We know Beyonce just by Beyonce. I don't know what her last name is, but she never uses it. So the Pretty Hurts, I know it's something, it's not from a book because it's italicized. It's a title of something, and that's fine. In the last entry on this page, Goldman, Anne, the author's last name, questions of transport, reading Primo Levi, reading Dante. I know that's a title of something from something larger. In this case, it's from the Georgia Review. So since it's a title of an article from a review or a journal, they quotation marked it because it's a title. Okay, some other entries. So this is just saying be as specific as possible with your entries on your works cited page. The first example, it's nothing new. We get Adichie, Chimamanda Ngozi, so we get the author, then we get the period, then we get the title of the article of some sort, or a chapter. On Monday of last week, I know it's a chapter in a book, or it's a title of an article of a website, or title of an article in a journal, or the title of a newspaper article, because it's in quotation mark. And then we get the bigger thing that it came from that's italicized, the thing around your neck. Notice here they got it wrong. All the major words, it should be capitalized within a title, right? The thing and around should be capitalized, should be capital A and around, and it isn't. And then you get the publisher, Alfred A. Knopf, and then 2009, and you get the page numbers. So I think that's exactly how our entries are going to look if we're looking at something, an article within a larger thing, a book in this case. But all too often we're going to be pulling information, quotes from websites, from online journals, online books, online articles from a newspaper. So in the bottom case, the entry on the bottom of this slide, we still include the author's last name if we have one, Dershowitz, comma, William, period. And then the title of the article, The Death of an Artist and the Birth of the Creative Entrepreneur, unquote. Then the bigger thing it came from, say the Atlantic was an online article, sorry, online journal, the Atlantic, right? Then it's italicized because it's the bigger thing. And then you get the URL, which I want us to include. We want to include information, so say an individual wanted to, for whatever reason, in a professional setting, an academic setting, you were at a conference and presenting a paper at a conference, and someone said, "Wow, that was really interesting what you talked about with Darowich and William Darowich, The Death of an Artist. Can you give me the URL so I can go check that out? Because I'd like to do some research on that as well, right?" That's why we include the URL. Okay, we covered a lot. If you have any questions, email me. If you need some clarification, email me, and I'll help clarify some points. Or you can go to this web address for Purdue. The information they have there is thorough. They give a sample essay as well, how it looks. I think first couple pages of a sample essay. Hey, you can call them. There's a number. You want to call them and say, "Hey, I'm a candidate. I need help with my essay." You can do that, or you can email them. But all joking aside, you can go to the website, or you can email me, and I can help clarify. We covered a lot today. Don't be overwhelmed by it. We're going to get a lot of things wrong, right? But hopefully we'll be able to catch those mistakes within our discussion when we upload our essays tomorrow, our rough draft tomorrow, to Blackboard. And I'm going to comment on everybody's essay. You're going to comment on some individual's essay. Within the next lecture, I'll let you know what that actually is going to look like. Thanks, guys. Bye.